And we're back. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Don't forget, during this 5 o'clock hour tomorrow, it'll be the Friday at 5 free-for-all. We think we have it all set up to where now we will be on Facebook Live. All four cameras will work. You'll be able to hear everything, including phone calls, like when we bring up guests, like right now, as I'm going to go to the Newsmaker line and talk to Lindsey Harrison. She is a brand expert. Lindsey, hi. Welcome to the program. Now, Lindsey, brand is kind of an important thing. I mean, brand is something that 10 or 15 years ago we didn't hear much about, but brand is really important. I mean, there are a lot of companies that spend an awful lot of money, to create a brand and then kind of push it. In fact, if you don't protect your brand, you're kind of in trouble in this current marketplace, aren't you?
Right, definitely. So like you said, there are tons of companies that spend a lot of time and a lot of money trying to figure out who they are, what they stand for, and coming up with their brand to make sure that consumers like them, or the types of consumers that they want to go after are pleased by who they are.
Well, let's take this now as we talk about a brand, because you can brand anything. Your brand of car, and is it always the car you're going to settle with? The brand of clothing that you wear, the brand of the burger that you eat. I mean, all this stuff. There are people in some pretty high-level offices wearing some pretty expensive suits that sit around and make a lot of decisions. Just so when I'm presented with two options, I always go with that brand, because I've even subliminally a little bit been sold on it. It's even true on TV channels, including cable networks. And we saw the story this week about ESPN and their announcer. Was this decision made, in your view? You probably weren't in Connecticut in a conference room when this went down. But when they made the decision not to have the announcer, Robert Lee, do the UVA game on ESPN, was this probably a brand concern that they were looking at when they made that decision?
If it's my opinion, I would say no.
Okay.
I see this as a company that is looking at people that work with them. So we're looking at an announcer, and I own a company here in Dallas, and I have to tell you that if there was any situation that I thought that one of my employees would be in danger with, that would have to be heckled with, that would have any type of harm to them physically or mentally, the decision, no matter if it is politically correct or not, would always be to take that person away from that situation.
So you think, and this is an option.
That's what it is.
Yeah, this is an option we really haven't looked at. You think, okay, maybe in that arena, in that stadium, that having the name Robert Lee, if there was even one or two people that would somehow get riled because of everything that went on in Virginia a couple of weeks ago, that maybe his life might have actually been endangered.
Look, it only takes one person, and we saw that just a few weeks ago in that exact area,
yeah,
to where one person committed, it's a murder. And I don't care what it is that your views are on either way of that situation. I think that it's horrible. I think that us even thinking about white supremacy is the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard of 150 years later from the Civil War.
Right.
But again, if there was any doubt in my mind or any hesitation at all that I thought that somebody's safety was in jeopardy, then it's a no-brainer to me. And to be honest with you, I think that is what happened. After looking at all of the statements from ESPN, that's what I saw initially.
Look, let me go that far with you. I, too, think it's kind of ridiculous that we're refighting wars and settlements that happened 150 years ago. And white supremacy, I still have to pay all my own bills. So if I'm supreme, nobody's told my creditors. But let me, you do bring up a good point, though, because, I might say, well, you just go ahead and do it anyway, because they need to learn. He's not part of that. He's a Robert Lee. He's Asian. But if that's my son or my brother or my dad and something happens to him, well, let's be honest. If he went and did that game, something horrible happened to him, half the world would be screaming, why didn't ESPN take better care of him? I mean, they would.
You're completely correct. And I had somebody earlier tell me, well, we should be standing up to these people, and we shouldn't be swayed by what it is that they're doing. It's almost like terrorism. And my thought is while I understand that, there is a certain degree that we have to acknowledge what it is that's going on, and we have to take appropriate steps to make sure that people are safe.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my stance on this one.
Yeah. I mean, the house shouldn't be on fire, but if the house is on fire, I'm certainly not going to send you inside the house. You have to deal with the cards that have been dealt you.
Right, and it wasn't ESPN's fault that this ended up happening.
That's
they are
also
just
true.
Dealing with the aftermath of it.
Yeah, that's also true. So is there a point, do you think? I mean, do you think ESPN now will have to continue to shelter this guy, Robert Lee, or do you think there's a day life dies down and without trumpets blaring or without any pre-announcements, he just shows up again and he does a game, whether it's in Virginia or South Carolina, and it doesn't matter. He's just a guy doing a game. Do you think that they're going to be able to move to that point?
Oh, I definitely think that's the case. I mean, to be honest with you, Robert Lee, he's a part-time announcer. He has a full-time payroll service job in Albany.
Correct.
So this is, in my opinion, 15 minutes of fame for him, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I think that's all that it is, and I think we'll see it play out.
Listen, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your point of view on that. You considered some things there that I had not brought up earlier in the week, but I appreciate you bringing that out. Lindsey, thank you very much for being on with us today.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
You too. Lindsey Harrison.
All right, this hour, talking about a topic, this is probably one of the most ridiculous things I've heard of in my entire radio career. When I first heard this story, I said, yep, here's some more of that fake news stuff. Gotta be. ESPN on Tuesday, it's not fake news. We have a reporter named Robert Lee. He was pulled from calling a University of Virginia football game because of his name, Robert Lee. ESPN's Lee is Asian, of all things. They say it was a decision that was made collectively by all parties as those events of Charlottesville unfolded, although now I'm hearing that this was more in an effort to provide him some protection and shielding from criticism because of his name than anything else. Maybe you believe that, maybe you don't. Do you think ESPN made the right call, or is this above and beyond on the PC scale? That's our question for you. And joining us to talk about that is we've invited a special guest named Lindsey Harrison, a brand expert and the owner of It Crowd Marketing. And Lindsey, I'm reading some of the your resume here, and it says Lindsey Harrison, a dainty yet feisty woman, and I love this description, a serial entrepreneur, is the creator of It Crowd Marketing. She dove into the business world at a young age, spawning an immense wisdom of how to create and perfect her own company. That's quite a tribute.
Well, goodness, I haven't been called dainty and feisty before. I like it.
Well, I'll go one step further. I've seen your photograph, and I would say you're also quite attractive, but I may be getting into some political incorrectness there. I don't know. Forgive me if I do.
Well, Don, thank you so much. And I do have to say that one of my favorite cities that you guys are in, I'm here in Dallas, Texas, and New Orleans is actually where I got married. So you guys are near and dear to my heart. So thank you for having me on today.
Oh, very good. Tell me first about your company, It Crowd Marketing.
Yeah, so we are a fractional marketing agency, so we will actually come into corporations and we will take over absolutely everything. Or if they already have maybe a marketing team in place, we will come in and we will be their best friends and work beside them. So it's been really great. We have absolutely exploded here in Dallas, which has been really fun. So it sounds like we're doing something right. And now they have coined me as the millennial marketer, and so I give speeches as well as radio and TV interviews across the United States. So it's been a fun ride. More
and more accolades coming your way, and certainly being there in Dallas, I mean, that is one of our centers of the advertising and branding business. You're in the right place for that, for sure.
Yeah, I've done pretty well. We're excited about it.
Well, Lindsey, tell me, what is your take on this ESPN move? I mean, it's just gone way beyond the limit. People this is one of those ones where they don't even know what to say. They just shake their heads and say, oh, what next? I can't believe this.
Well, first, I have have to say, the entire situation, I am completely dumbfounded that we are having conversations about this. I mean, it is ridiculous and absurd to me how insane some of society has become, and that we are even talking about white supremacy. I mean, I had a conversation with somebody yesterday that called me about an 18-year-old boy, that didn't think that females should be in leadership roles or have ownership in companies.
I bet that went over real big with you.
I mean, I'm just sitting here, and this is two things that have hit me this week, and I'm going, how ignorant is some of our society still? And the way that I look at the whole ESPN side of things, I mean, don't get me wrong. We've all been at a family reunion where Aunt Margaret and Grandpa Fred are addressing the elephant in the room, and you look at that going, abort, I want to have nothing to do with this, turn around, don't talk about that. And I think that that's what ESPN is doing, and they're saying, look, like, there's stuff that's going on here. We do not want to get involved with that. And Robert, like, let's talk about this. I mean, arguably, he has a better gig that he's doing instead. He's not going to have to worry about the safety of himself, and he's closer to home. So I don't really understand why this is an issue at all.
I don't understand why they even brought it up. I mean, they're a sports broadcasting network. Let the man call the game. And, I mean, you know, I think they're responding to Twitter and social media, and they've got this big fear that, you know, it's going to take them down as far as their brand and their marketing. They're going to become unpopular. But it looks like it's worked in the reverse, that maybe there's more people, you know, taking the other side of it and criticizing for what they did.
Well, and I think that my side of it is still looking at the entire situation and going, this is absurd that they even have to, one, make that decision or even have to have that conversation. I'm on the same side as ESPN, and I think that for me, instead of going into the fire of ridiculousness already, and having Robert end up going into that situation and potentially being a harmful situation because of things that are outside of his control, going, you know what, let's just not even be a part of that. Let's just not decide to do that, and let's put you somewhere else. It would have been another situation if they said, you know what, Robert, we're pulling you from this game, and we just can't have you part of ESPN anymore because of your name. But they're not doing that. They're saying, here's another game. It's closer to home. It's probably a more favorable game for you to report on, and let's do that instead.
Well, I guess we disagree, because I think by doing that, then they created this talk and this issue where I think it wouldn't have even been noticed.
You don't think that him going on radio and going, hey, this is Robert Lee?
Absolutely not. I would have never come to my mind that was even an issue. If I'm there to watch a football game.
I commend you, because I think that is amazing, and I am of the same stature as you in the fact of I wouldn't have thought about that either. However, you have some crazy people that are over there right now that is what they're thinking about. And I think that ESPN has gone, you know what, let's just not even go towards that situation, and let's try to stay away from it.
Oh, I agree with you on the crazies. I hear from them every day on our text message board. I call them internet jackals and hyenas and the keyboard terrorists. All right, we're going to take a break here, Lindsey. When we come back, I'm going to share some of this information that's coming in, some people's opinion. We'll also check on our Peretti opinion poll. We're asking our listeners to vote on whether ESPN did the right thing or the wrong thing, and they can do that at WWL.com. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Big 870 WWL. All right, asking you this question. ESPN, did they take political correctness a little too far when they removed a man named Robert Lee from calling a University of Virginia football game because of his name? And they're saying now it was in his defense to avoid any criticism or unfair attacks on him, given the issue that's going on in Charlottesville. Lindsey Harrison of it's called It Crowd Marketing in Dallas, Texas. A brand expert is with us talking about it. Lindsey, I got some of our listeners. Most of them prefer to text these days, and we get a ton of them in at our 870. They come real time into the studio. Some of them are pretty out there, so grab your seatbelt while we go through these.
Oh, great. What are you getting me into?
Oh, you'll be okay. Here's one that says, this is exactly what the president meant in his comments. Where does it stop? about Robert Lee despicable. Another says the liberal ESPN is run by the liberal ABC have been promoting their political agenda for the last 10 years. They have also been using the line, the ESPYs award, to push their agenda. The guy they let go, which they didn't let him go, they simply moved him to another game. Robert Lee should sue ESPN. And here's one that's maybe one of the greatest pickup lines ever. Women need to be in the bed in the kitchen. So those being said, Lindsey, take your pick.
Oh, no.
Your thoughts on their thoughts?
You know what? I think that I am still just so confused on the entire thing. I mean, they are, from what it is that I am seeing and doing research on what it is that ESPN has said, as well as other situations behind it, they are looking at the safety of one of their announcers. I don't think that they had anything to do with if this is political correctness or not. I think it strictly was, we're looking after one of our own, and unfortunately there are things that are happening that are out of our control, and we are going to make sure that one of our announcers stay safe. And that is really the only thing that I can see from this. It was a joint decision, and again, he wasn't fired. He actually got a better game to announce that was closer to home, that now he actually ends up getting to be at home with his family as opposed to in an unsafe situation. And that's what I see from this. Again, I think that we are digressing as a society when it comes to us having people think that the color of their skin still today, almost 150 years after the Civil War, is something that's okay to talk about. And then let's even get into the topic of women in the kitchen. Are you joking me? I mean, are you joking?
I warned you. There's hyenas and jackals out there on the internet.
Going, how ignorant are some people? It makes no sense to me.
Yeah. All right, listen, we got lots more text to get to. Some pro and some con for ESPN, but we have Frank on the line, wants to comment. Let's bring him into the conversation. Frank, listen to us in Metairie. Frank's on line 1. Thanks, Frank, for your call.
Good morning. I just had to call in this morning. I listen every day. I just have a question. When is enough enough? What if there's a guy named Genghis Khan? Is he not going to call a soccer game with the Chinese? I mean, when is enough enough? That's my question. I fought for this country. You know, I want to know when's enough. When does it stop? Does it stop when we have a guy named Martin Luther King that wants to do a game and we say, well, you can't do it because of his name might offend people? I mean, when is enough enough? Do you offend people by going fishing? I mean, when's enough enough? That's my question. Can anybody out there tell me when enough is enough?
Well, Frank, while you and I probably wouldn't have given this a second thought, a guy named Robert Lee calling a game, I would have never made the connection personally. But as Lindsey points out, there are people that would, and maybe it was an effort, a goodwill gesture on their part to protect him if he needs protection. I don't know if an announcer feels like, I can't bear the criticism of somebody associating me with a dead Civil War guy, you know?
Well, let me ask you this question. How many people do you really think, if you went to LSU Stadium and you asked them who's calling the game tonight, would have the correct answer?
I don't know, a legitimate amount. I would say maybe half. Maybe half would know.
But, I mean, it's just, I don't know when's enough. You know, I mean, I have grandchildren, and I worry about them. I mean, at some point, we got to all understand that some point of this has got to stop. It's picking at wounds that because certain people never want them to heal, they never will. And that's from whites and blacks and everything. You got white leaders and black leaders that just don't want us to get along.
Lindsey, do you agree with Frank? Have we reached the point, no more, this is it, line drawn?
Well, Frank, first I have to say thank you for your service. I appreciate everything it is that you have done. And I agree with you. When is enough enough? And a lot of times I see things that are out there, and I wonder if people just don't have enough to do in their day-to-day life.
Well, let me ask you this question. I go to the VA, okay? And last week I was there 4 times last week. And I could sit with black people I don't know, Chicano people I don't know, and we can actually sit down and have a conversation without yelling, without screaming, without punching each other about what's going on in this country. And, if we can sit down as individuals that don't know each other, and the only thing we have in common is service, and just start talking, and we can solve the problems. But our leaders do not want us to do that. They want to keep festering the wounds and keep picking at them. So both sides, the white supremacists that will never get along with anybody because their brains have been washed out with bleach. And you got the other side that no matter what, everything that anybody ever did is wrong. I didn't own slaves. I don't know a black man that I know that was a slave. And when we sit down and talk about this, a lot of them think it's ridiculous. But you know what? They cannot say nothing in their own community because they'll be attacked and criticized. So when is enough enough?
I completely agree with you. I 100% completely agree with you. However, have you heard the saying that you can't argue with somebody that's crazy? I mean, there's just no logic that actually gets through their head. And in my opinion, ESPN has gone, you know what, we're just not even going to deal with the crazy. Because it only takes one person to make this a horrible situation for Robert Lee. It just takes one person. And you might be saying, and I might be saying, and Dawn is saying as well. However, between the three of us, we're not going to be that one person that makes it bad for Robert Lee. And ESPN is just going, look, we're not going to do that, and we're just going to stay away from the situation. And I agree. When is enough enough? I don't know. We get upset about what the president says or what he doesn't say. We're now getting upset with ESPN on what decision they make with their announcers, with the help of the announcer. Like, I just don't know if anybody can do anything right anymore without getting criticized.
All right, Lindsey, I'm sure.
ESPN confirmed Tuesday night that it had decided to pull an announcer from calling a University of Virginia football game because his name is Robert Lee. This Robert Lee is Asian American.
Lindsey Harrison runs a marketing agency specializing in brand strategy. She joins us on the Kogo News Live line. And Lindsey, really, I saw several people who actually came out and went fake news when it broke, but it was actually true. Was this as dumb as most people seem to think?
You know what? I have to say that I am dumbfounded by the entire situation, to be completely honest with you. Everything that's happening in Charlottesville, I can't believe that we are still having white supremacy almost 150 years after the Civil War, to be first blank and honest about it. But second, now we have somebody that ESPN has to go out and go, you know what? This actually might be a safety issue for you, and we're going to take you from this game. I am just absolutely appalled that the entire thing is happening.
But how did it happen? I mean, here's what ESPN said. It's a shame this is even a topic of conversation. We regret that who calls play-by-play for a football game has become an issue. Was it ever an issue except for ESPN?
Well, I think that it's an internal issue. So as an employer myself, if there is at any point that I think that one of the people that I work with or an employee of mine is going to be in any type of physical danger, maybe I think that they are going to be heckled, if I think that they are going to be in mental anguish, anything like that, I am taking them out of that situation. And I don't care if it's politically correct. I don't care if you like it. I don't care if you don't like it. But that's me as an employer and taking care of one of my employees. And that's what I think that ESPN has done.
So, but most people, I'll be honest, most of the people that I've talked to and have seen on Twitter find that it's absolutely ridiculous that ESPN came out and made the announcement that they even pulled him from the game. There was no indication from what we can see that he was going to be in any danger or heckled.
Well, and I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, you're going into Charlottesville, and yeah, I think that a sane person like you or I goes, okay, Robert Lee, and he's Asian, and it really makes no sense of any of this. However, we have to acknowledge the fact that there was a murder just a few weeks ago because of riots that were happening there. And whether we like that or not, it has to be acknowledged. And again, I think the safety of somebody, even if it's a tiny, tiny safety risk, it only takes one person to make this a really bad situation for a guy that's named Robert Lee. And you know what? He has a better gig anyways. He's getting more press from it. He's got something that's closer to home, and I think it's better all the way around.
All right, Lindsey, thank you for your time. Lindsey Harrison runs a marketing agency that specializes in brand strategy. We appreciate your time, Lindsey.